Hello my geniuses, welcome to another lecture series. Today is your great science tutor Lorenzo. I'll be talking about the second pathway, which is the visual pathway. So if you are just new to my channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notification button so that anytime I drop any video you'll be sure to be notified. And if you want me to make any topic for you and you love me to also make any topic that you need, paste it down in the comment section. I promise when I see it I'll make that video for you personally. So let's jump right into the video. So first of all, we'll be talking about introduction to the visual pathway. So what do we know about the introduction to the visual pathway? What is the visual pathway? Just like the olfactory pathway, the visual pathway is a nervous system pathway, or we'll call it a neural pathway. We transmit light or visual impulses from the eyes, which is from the surrounding, into the eyes, then to the visual cortex, okay, which is at the occipital lobe of the brain. Are you getting me now? So what you know, it occurs due to binocular vision. So the way we see with two parts of vision. We have the nasal side, which is on the medial side close to the nose, the side of the eyes that is close to the nose, and we have the temporal side, the side that is close to the temporal bone or the temporal lobe of the brain, so which is the lateral side of your eyes and the medial side of your eyes. So we'll call it the binocular vision. So when you are looking from the lateral side of the eyes, it falls on the nasal part of your eyes. You get it now? So if you are looking from the temporal side, it falls on the nasal side, and if you are looking from the nasal side, it falls on the temporal side. You get it now? So now what is the stimulus? So what kind of light enter into the eyes? Like I said, the ray of light, let me say during the day when the sun is out, the ray of light from the sun enters to the eyes. Like I said, it passes to the nasal side and the temporal side. When it passes to the nasal side, it stimulates at the temporal side of the retina. When it passes to the temporal side, it snaps on the nasal side of the retina. So when it snaps on this temporal nasal side of the retina, what happens now? It now goes to and stimulate on the cones and the rods. So the cones and the rods are in the inner neural layer of the retina. So they are the nerve layer that are sensitive to light. So they are photosensitive. So when they pick up the light impulses, like I said, the rods picks up dark impulses, while the cones picks up bright impulses. So when they pick up this light and dark impulses, they are dendrite of bipolar neuron. Don't forget, cones and rod are dendrite of bipolar neurons. And what is dendrites? Dendrites are receptive layer into the neuron. So when they receive the impulses into the neuron, they organize and concentrate it in the cell body, and action potential are generated in the first node of Ranvier. Remember, for sensory impulses, action potential are generated in the first node of Ranvier, while for motor impulses, it is generated on the initial segment. So when action potential is generated at this particular point, it now moves through the axons. You get it now? It moves through the word axons. So when it moves through the axons, because we are talking about in these axons, which is the first order neuron, in the first order neuron, impulses move through the axons and synapses with the ganglionic fibers. Don't forget, light enters into the eye through the temporal and nasal side, stimulate on that side of the retina, which is the nasal side stimulating on temporal side of the retina, and temporal side stimulating on the nasal side of the retina. So when they stimulate on this part of the retina, they are picked up by the cones and rod, which are dendrites of bipolar neurons. So when they are picked up, they are organized and resynchronized in the cell body, action potential generated in the first node of Ranvier, and they move through the axons. So when they move through the axons, from the axon they synapse on the ganglionic fibers. From the ganglionic fibers, what happens? The ganglionic fibers fuse together to form the optic nerve, just as the olfactory nerve. But for the olfactory nerve, what happens? The olfactory the axons fuse together to form the olfactory nerve, but for this one, the ganglionic fibers fuse together to form the optic nerve. So when they form the optic nerve, they pierce through the middle and outer tunic, because the retina is in the inner tunics of the eyes. But when they fuse, they pierce through the outer and the middle tunic of the eyes to move outside. So they have formed the optic nerve. So the optic nerve pierces through this part of the eyes to move backwards. So when they are moving backwards in the second order neuron, what happens? They are forming a temporal side of the retina and the nasal side of the retina. Why they are going? Don't forget. So when they are passing through the very simple way, when they are going, now they not decussate or crosses at the optical chiasm. So you can see it on your screen. In the second order neuron, they decussate and passes to the optic chiasma. So the optic chiasma is located anterior to the hypophyseal gland, which is the pineal gland, in the sella turcica, which is the hypophyseal fossa of the sella turcica. So in the sella turcica is the body of the sphenoid bone. There you have a fossa or a depression called the pituitary fossa or the hypophyseal fossa. So that is in front of the hypophyseal fossa. You have the decussation of the optic nerve. So when the optic nerve decussate at that particular point, but the only part that decussates, don't forget, it is the nasal side of the retina. So the nasal side of the optic nerve rather is the only part that decussate. The temporal side of the ipsilateral temporal side do not decussate. Only the nasal side goes contralaterally to cross. Are you getting now? So it is the red side of what you are seeing. The red side remains constant all through the motion, while the blue side decussate. You get it now? So that is very, very important. So when they decussate, what's the next thing they do now? They continue as the optic tract. They come as the optic nerve, decussate, forming the optic chiasma, and more continue as the optic tract. So the optic tract is formed by its bilateral temporal part and contralateral nasal side. Don't forget. So when they continue as the optic tract, what happens now? The synapses on the lateral geniculate body. So the synapses on the lateral geniculate body of the metathalamus. In the metathalamus, you have the medial geniculate body and the lateral geniculate body. The medial geniculate body forms an inferior branchium with the inferior colliculus, while the lateral geniculate body forms a superior branchium with the superior colliculus. The lateral geniculate body forms fibers with the superior colliculus called the superior branchium. You get it now? So this is where at this particular point light impulses of movement through the tectospinal tract, also movement of the eyes in all directions is picked up, also from the provenia. Many parts of the hypothalamus, also many parts communicate with the eyes at this particular point through the lateral geniculate body. So from the superior colliculus to the superior branchium to the lateral geniculate body. Now from the lateral geniculate body, in the third order neuron, what happens? Geniculocortical fibers from the lateral geniculate body travels to the cortex, which is the primary visual cortex. Now these geniculocortical fibers follows what we call optical radiation. So we have two optical radiation. We have the superior optical radiation to the parietal lobe and the inferior optical radiation to the temporal lobe. So when they are crossing through the superior and inferior optical radiation, they synapse in the occipital lobe at the primary visual cortex area 17 and the association visual cortex area 18 and 19. So very, very easy. So since we have talked about this one now, we have understood now this is where visual impulses are stored, interpreted, and so many things happen in this area. So when there's damage to this area, you will not see again, right? For the clinical correlation, we have what we call anopia. So what is anopia? Anopia is a damage to the optic nerve. It's bilateral temporal side, it's bilateral nasal side. When they are damaged, you have what we call anopia. It give you total blindness. So now we have next one, we have hemianopia. So in the hemianopia, we have what we call heteronymous hemianopia and homonymous hemianopia. Now in heteronymous hemianopia is when you damage the two temporal side at the optic chiasma. So when you damage the two temporal side at the optic chiasma, you have what we call binasal heteronymous hemianopia, which means because vision from the temporal side synapses on the nasal side. So when you are having damage to the temporal side of the optic chiasma, you have binasal heteronymous hemianopia. But when you damage the nasal side of the optic chiasma, you now have bitemporal heteronymous hemianopia. But you can have right-sided hemianopia. When you damage the temporal side of one side, you have the nasal side of the other side. That right temporal damage, right temporal nerve damage, or right temporal nerve damage at the optic chiasma causes what? Right nasal hemianopia. But when you damage the optic tract, lateral geniculate body, or optical radiation, what you have is you have what we call homonymous hemianopia, which is damage to the temporal side of one side and damage to the contralateral nasal side of the other side. So it will also give you blindness. So hope you understood it. So we have talked about the clinical correlation. Now we have talked about the first order, second order, and third order neuron with diagrams. So hope you understand it. So if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notification button so that anytime I drop any video, you'll be sure to be notified. If you want me to make any video for you, drop it down in the comment section. I promise I'll make that video for you. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.